not a lot of people talk about is actually, I think that being effective and being productive, consequently, is actually not related to the actual doing of the thing. It's more like thinking about the doing of the thing. And so that when you sit down to actually execute on it, you can just do it really quickly. You can do it really efficiently. And also making sure that this is the highest leverage. Hello, YouTube. So today I want to share a few of the learnings that I had around productivity while working on these multiple projects that I have, and hopefully share some different perspectives around productivity, things that are not talked about very often on these YouTube videos, on this blog post. So yeah, but for those who don't know me, my name is Victor King, and I have the ambitious goal of building a small business, raising a beautiful family, all while holding a full-time job and trying to be a high-performing amateur rock climber. So first things first, right? So what's productivity? I think basically, in my mind, it's just the amount of output you get for a specific input, right? So you put 1 hour of work, you get X amount of output. And I think there are two main pieces to that. One, I think, is efficiency, which I think is the thing that is talked about the most on these blog posts, YouTube videos, social media. People are always talking about like how efficiently, how well you can do something. I think that's a big part of it. But actually, I would focus more on the second piece, which is effectiveness, right? So about efficiency, I think it's related to doing things well, like how well you can do something. And I think that's closely related to the amount of skill you have to do it, right? So let's say for any kind of like you are a video editor. And so the more skilled you are, the faster and the better videos you'll be able to make in the shorter amount of time, right? And so, but the thing is for you to get better and more skilled in order to do a great video in less time, you need to just do a lot of it in the beginning, right? So it creates this feedback loop, this positive feedback loop, where in the beginning you start is messy, is hard, is shitty, and then just keep practicing, and then you get used to it. Your work flows, you get in the zone, and you just get everything done pretty quickly in a high quality way. The same as work, right? Like I work a lot with spreadsheets. And so in the beginning it was hard figuring out the formulas, figuring out how to structure the data. But currently today is much easier. And so I think it became more efficient because I got more skills over time, right? But then doing something really well doesn't mean you are doing the right thing, right? That's where I think effectiveness comes into play. And I think that's actually one step before efficiency, because first you need to figure out what you need to do in order to do that well, I think. And around effectiveness, I think a lot of people talk about, say no to most of the things because you always have more ideas, you always have more possibilities than you can actually, do those. And so you always have more demand than capacity to execute on those. So you need to be able to say no, especially like, both work, life, all of these areas of life. But that is how do you decide on saying no and saying yes to some other things, right? And I think that's where this understanding what are the highest leverage things that you can do to get the most outcome. So usually there is this Pareto law, which is the 80-20, like 80% of the outcome comes from the 20% of the inputs. So, and that's true in many things in life, I think, like business, like 80% of revenue coming from 20% of client. Not always in that proportion, but it is usually like a bigger amount of the output coming from the smaller number of inputs. And so these are the things. But one thing that I think that, is still not a lot of people talk about is actually, I think that being effective and being productive, consequently, is actually not related to the actual doing of the thing. It's more like thinking about the doing of the thing. And so that when you sit down to actually execute on it, you can just do it really quickly. You can do it really efficiently. And also making sure that this is the highest leverage thing you could do. And And I think that's the hardest part because it requires thinking, it requires, projecting different scenarios. And it also requires a degree of impatience, if you will, because, I think there's a range, right? There's people who plan too much, who plan a lot and have a really hard time in executing. And on the other side of the spectrum, there are people who are too impatient and they just don't want to plan, don't want to think, and they just get to the execution. I think the sweet spot is somewhere in between. I think actually the world's more gray than black and white, but I can talk more about that in another video. But yeah, I think there needs to be a balance. And this is something that I caught myself into. Like if I look back in the years, I used to be a lot like a planner, like, oh, I really wanted to plan the things, doing things really well before actually sitting down and doing. But then in the last years, like more recently, I've become this execution focused person, which has been really good. It allowed me to gain a lot of skill to do things really well, fast, in a good quality, especially on work. But now I think I need to take a step back again on the execution portion and start thinking a little bit more, being a bit more thoughtful before executing. Like, simple example, like doing this video, doing the scripting, thinking about what I'm going to say. I think, you know, s- thinking about this a little bit before actually taking the camera, sitting down to record the video. I think it's super important because I tried doing that without, let's say practicing, and it was just a mess. Like I couldn't feel the flow of my words. I couldn't feel how to be in front of the camera. I couldn't be confident in what I was saying. I was kind of lost. And that's the thing, like practicing and being a bit more thoughtful before actually executing doesn't mean like you need to, think about this hours and hours ahead. It's just for this example, like I just did, a couple of, I don't know, practice a little bit a couple of times, but that was it. So it's really just thinking a bit more deeply about what you're going to do for, it can be half an hour or something like that. Or even it can be, like while you're doing the dishes or, taking a shower. Like if these are things that you're constantly thinking about and you're really interested in, like thoughts will come naturally to you. And so it's not that you are, there's no opportunity cost about thinking about the thing. I think that's what I mean. It's like, you don't need to not do one thing to think about what you want to do. It's like, this is just naturally coming to you. So I think that's super important. And yeah, but then, okay, we see that, we are doing things really well. We know we decided on what the things are, the highest leverage things are. But then the question becomes like, how do I know what the highest leverage things are, right? Like, how do I know that doing X will bring disproportionate more outputs than Y? Like, I don't know. And that's one thing that I've been facing, like one challenge, because especially when you're starting, projects from scratch, like this YouTube channel, or me that are also like, I'm learning how to code or trying to build a small consultancy side business. There is no positive reinforcement. There is no one telling you, oh, you should go this way or that way, or, it's really hard to have early signs of, this is the right path rather than that path. And so it's really easy to feel a bit lost and to lose motivation. But there were a couple of things that really helped me with that. And one is studying, basically. Well, and when I say studying, it's basically like watching a ton of YouTube videos, reading a ton of blog posts, LinkedIn posts, if it's related to work. Because I think studying is, today, like we live in this incredible world where we can, really pick the brain of the best people, of the highest performers in the world. And, for us not to make the same mistakes they made and, have a much efficient path to achieving our goals. And so I think studying and listening from other people who has been there is super important. And so the other piece to that is the gut feeling, is how you feel about those, because, there are endless possibilities. And then you think about one thing, like another thing, and there is this pull, this gravity around some ideas, some things that you could do that naturally attracts you. And I think that's related to gut feeling. And also, I think underlying that is, the knowledge that you got from studying. And, by doing that, you get the positive reinforcement and, you get also, again, better and better at feeling those and being more gut driven because it, again, I don't think it's black and white. It's like gut driven or knowledge. I think knowledge improves our gut feeling and, your gut feeling also helps you learn more things more easily. And so I think it's always a combination of those things. But yeah, this is what I've been reflecting a lot about in the last week. And I'll give a couple of real life examples from what I've been through that led me to all these reflections. So currently I have two main projects that I'm working on, right? One is learning how to code and building a web development app while also documenting the journey. And the other one is building a small client service side business, basically like a consultancy thing that I want to do related to my work. And so one framework that's been helpful for me is basically just drawing this chart where the y-axis is the impact and the x-axis is the amount of resources that it takes to accomplish that. In my case, it's just time per week in hours. And then I distributed each one of the things that I need to do in order to achieve each one of those projects and spread them out in this chart. So, one thing that is important to say is just in a next 30 days framework. So this is just deciding what are the highest leverage actions I can take to get the output I want in the next 30 days, basically. So yeah, starting on the project one, which is learning how to code and building an audience, basically, is I had three different things, which is scripting, editing, and distribution, which could be, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, distributing the content in multiple different social media and platforms. And the way that I distributed those is scripting on the higher impact and less time, because what I've noticed is that scripting takes like a lower amount of time compared to the other two, but has a huge impact. Meaning, the better you talk in the camera and record the videos, the less time you need editing. And so focusing a little bit more on the scripting to, be able to record in a better way, and which will require less time editing, is, I think, in my mind, it was a pretty high leverage thing that I could do. So I focused on that. And the one thing that has helped me in the scripting is basically just writing bullet points or even flowcharts. I think I'll probably show like the real script that I had for this video somewhere in the video, but that has helped me a lot. So that is the highest impact, lowest effort. Then I have the editing piece, which is a bit lower impact and a bit more time consuming. And one thing, like if you ever have ever edited videos, like it takes a long time. Even if you want to do something simple, like, you have to choose like a video editor, have to learn it and all that. So one thing that has helped me a lot on this editing piece is doing a set, but that's not as soon as possible. That's as simple as possible. And so, doing as much raw, unedited, uncut shot like the one that I'm doing, I think it's pretty cool and also take less time and effort. So, win-win. And then there is the distribution piece, which is, posting on Instagram, YouTube, different places. And that one I will not do because it requires a huge amount of time. And I'm not here to, grow a following, like a big following on this other place. I just want to focus on YouTube, at least for now. So who knows, maybe in the future I have a team, but at least not for now. So I crossed that from the list. So I'm just focusing on scripting and editing for, this channel for documentation of my journey. And the side business thing, I think there are two main buckets, right? Which is sales and marketing. And then on the marketing piece that I decided not to do also, I was thinking like, I could, create a bunch of content around revenue operations, post videos on YouTube, write blog posts, and revenue operations, what I do like professionally. And that's what I'll pretty much do as a consultant. But then I thought, like, is this going to give me the results that I want in the next 30 days? Probably not. Marketing is always like more long term than sales, and also like it takes a lot of time, and so that's why I put marketing in that quadrant. But then I was thinking, I really just need one client to make a meaningful impact in my income, and so I decided like I just focus on sales, which is pretty much just doing outreach on LinkedIn, and we'll see. Like I need to try. I think it requires a little bit of time because I need to research the people that I want to talk to and, develop the relationship and all that. But I think it has a pretty high impact. So yeah, that's why I put that one in there. And then I put coding on this lower quadrant, which I actually think that coding has a huge leverage in the long term for me. And yeah, I mean, the way I'm learning how to code, and I'll make another video about that, is usually I need at least 2 hours of uninterrupted time so that I can focus. I can, you know, pick up where I left off, you know, and really dig deeper on that without distractions. And ChatGPT has been, I mean, this AI stuff is amazing and has been great for me to learn. The way I'm doing it in a nutshell is basically I write some code, try to run this, returns me an error. I go to ChatGPT, copy and paste the code and say, oh, I'm doing this, but I'm getting this error. What's happening? And then GPT usually gives me a couple of possible solutions. I try those. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, I ask again. And so it's been pretty eye opening, and I think it's been progressing well. So eventually, when I build my personal development app, I'll show you guys. But I put coding in this lower part of the impact because, again, it's on this next 30 days time frame. And so, yeah, this is the main framework I've been using to, prioritize everything that I need to do while trying to be a great dad and husband and, a great professional and also like a pretty good rock climber. So hopefully it makes sense. Hopefully, these are more related to your day-to-day things because, I think it's great that we can listen to all these best people in the world, like Tim Ferriss, Alex Hormozi, like Gary Vee, all these people about productivity. But one thing that I've always missed is like they are way ahead, and I know the principles, the concepts apply, but I mean, it would be much more interesting if I could listen to, like Ali Abdal, for example, when he was doing his first video and learning about all this stuff, for example. And so hopefully that makes sense. This is just me sharing my learnings on my journey. Hopefully it applies to you, it helps you, and see you next time.